Hey guys, hey, it's me. It's your favorite streamer, your favorite YouTuber, maybe your favorite person. I mean, that's on the table entirely, in which case I would say I don't blame you. But I'm here for another rambling video. I'm in a cast now, so that's good. I'm in a cast. I've got, a cast. I'm thinking about doing something maybe in terms of like streaming where if the highest donation of the night or some shit like that, and I don't care, I'll sell out. I'll write something on the cast. We'll figure that all out, but I'm back with another rambling video because I had stuff I wanted to say about this Kevin Durant saga. It's reaching where the Jimmy Butler saga was reaching during the season, where that lasted like 2 months, where it was like, you know what? I'm done with these constant rumors. I'm done with the daily fucking update about this. Just wake me up when a trade happens. I'm kind of reaching that point with the KD stuff because just a week ago, it felt like Kevin Durant was going to the Spurs. Like it was set in stone, done. It made sense. All of it was logical. And now who knows what's going to happen? I have some gripes with the way this is all playing out. And of course, I have a ton of fanspo mock trades because, I wasn't doing anything else earlier today. So let's talk about Kevin Durant and potential trade destinations and stuff like that. There's another rambling video. You guys will be getting these, maybe not daily, but very frequently over the offseason, especially once stuff starts ramping up. So make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe, all of that stuff. Tell me, you guys like these, right? You guys like the rambling videos? Okay, and this is my Clips channel. If you're discovering this, my real channel is Slightly Biased as well. I'll be streaming, and if a big trade happens or something like that, I will go live immediately over on my main channel, youtube.com/Slightly Biased. Let's talk a little bit about this Kevin Durant situation. First and foremost, let's just start here, right? Because I think lost in the fact that, yes, Kevin Durant is, 36 years old. Lost in the fact that he'll turn 37 before the start of the season. Lost in the fact that he's making $55 million this year. He's a free agent and he's straight up a flight risk. Like there's only a handful of teams that he has said he is willing to sign an extension with. Look, he's still an incredible player. Like he still is a top 10 player in the league. If you don't think he's a top 10 player in the league, then he's bare minimum a top 15 player in the league. He did just have a phenomenal season. The Suns were absolutely fucking terrible, but he was 26 points, 43% from deep, quietly had his second most, I think, efficient season from three, and one of his most efficient scoring seasons of his career. And there was stretches like early in the season where it was like, is Kevin Durant like an MVP guy? Like, is this a year where Kevin Durant's going to win MVP I think the Suns were 9-2 or something like that, and then they completely and totally fell apart. Not really KD's fault. And even with all the scoring stuff, which is still tremendous, the fact that he can still go get a bucket when you need it, great off-ball player, all of that stuff kind of fits well with any offensive scheme. But defensively, not where he used to be, but I think at worst is a neutral defender and can ramp it up at times to even be a good defender. So if he goes to the right context, the right circumstance, I think he could be a really good defensive player and that team could be really good. So let's just start there. Like Kevin Durant is still an incredible player, and I absolutely do think, even though his value is going to be low, I absolutely do think that Kevin Durant is a player that certain teams, and we'll get to them in a second, should be going after. 100%. If he ends up being much cheaper than if you end up having to pay 50 cents on the dollar for a guy like him, there's a few teams that I'd be very disappointed in if they didn't pull the trigger on one of these trades. So let's talk about it. Well, first and foremost, I saw this and I thought this was hilarious. The New York Knicks reportedly view Jaren Jackson Jr. and Karl Anthony Towns as a dream pairing. Can you imagine that fucking, first and foremost, that'd be a great front court. But can you imagine that? You would see 6 of the stupidest fouls in the history of the NBA in the span of about 90 seconds. Like it would be fouls that you'd never even thought were possible. These two would put them together. They might be the first ever double foul. Like I could see a scenario where Jaren Jackson Jr. and Cat have their arms linked like Red Rover and they're just sprinting at people fouling them. And then after the foul, they're just like, what? I didn't even touch them. Like that would be one of the funnier front courts I can ever remember. But let's get back to the KD stuff. I just saw that and thought that was funny and wanted to bring it up. The Kevin Durant situation. So the Desmond Bane trade happens yesterday. Still love it for the Magic after sleeping on it. And immediately everyone's like, oh, well, this just changed the trade market entirely. I've seen Suns fans who are like, thank you so much, Orlando. Like now we're going to get so much more for Kevin Durant because this precedent's been set. Folks, how many times do we have to see this play out? This is not how it works. All right. It's unfortunately not. Mikal Bridges went for 5 first-round picks. That wasn't the market setter for these role guys. It depends on context. It depends on situation. Like a guy like Desmond Bane, younger, under contract, what's considered a friendlier contract, fits into pretty much every single scheme. If there were an open bidding war for a guy like Desmond Bane, he'd go for a ton, right? And again, one of those guys that every team in the league would be interested in. So, yeah, those guys go for a lot of picks, especially this happened with the Knicks, and this also happened with the Magic. When the contract's not stupid, when we're not talking $50, $60 million like we're talking for a guy like Kevin Durant, matching salaries is not as complicated. So you're not having to trade like valuable rotation pieces. You can get off of bad salaries, which replaces the value of picks, if that makes sense. So you just got to look at it that way. Like, of course, KD is not going to go for 5 first-round picks. You know, that's not even a surprise. That shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. Let's get down to business here. There's some hopes within the Suns organization that Bradley Beal will be able to produce at a level that matches his contract once Kevin Durant is out of the mix. There's likewise some hopes within the Suns that moving Durant could possibly present Beal with more offensive opportunity to produce in a manner you'd expect from a player with that sort of contract. As the Steinline has previously reported, various candidates considered during the Suns' recent coaching search were asked how they would try to get the best out of Beal if he remained a Sun. If I were the coach, my answer that would be, I don't know, slash his tires so he couldn't make his way to the stadium. But this is so funny to me, and it speaks to the fucking Suns, this whole process for KD. You see the betting odds here for current teams. Why do we know every step of this process for the Suns? That's something that annoys me so much about this. Why is it that we know every minute detail about this process for Phoenix? And it's funny because I've seen Suns fans who are like, you don't listen to the rumors, man. We're tight-lipped. Like, usually nobody knows. No, everyone fucking knows. You guys are not tight-lipped. We knew your final 11 head coaching searches. We knew who the final 11 finalists were. You guys tried to secretly trade Kevin Durant, and there was not a single thing secret about it at the trade deadline. No. I hate the way the Suns operate. I really do. It goes back to, they're the pathetic Suns, folks. They're one of the most pathetic teams we've seen. Destructive Matt Ishbia. I call him Little Destructive Matt. Everything he touches gets destroyed. Kevin Durant, they're trying to trade him. They've got rats, folks. They've got rats in their organization. We know every detail. We know all of it. They've told us all of it, folks. The pathetic Suns. It's just like, dude, trade him and shut up. I'm tired of just like the constant spinning that clearly comes from Phoenix's camp. Anytime there's a story about them is so annoying. But anyways, here's the most recent odds for Kevin Durant in his next trade destination. If you're betting on this, please, God, seek help. Like, please, I cannot emphasize enough how much help you need if you're betting on something like this. But it is interesting because Miami is now the favorite. Just a week ago, I think the Spurs were comfortably favorites here. And we do have some updates because, of course, we do because it's the Phoenix Suns. So let's just start here. This has picked up some steam in recent days. This was Shams this morning. Kevin Durant prefers the Heat, Spurs, and Rockets as trade destinations. We've heard that. Shams was told that Kevin Durant has no desire to be in Minnesota with the Timberwolves. This is reporting that we've had over the past couple of days. It was also reported by Jake Fisher and Zach Lowe said something along these lines as well, that Minnesota was picking up steam, that it felt like KD to Minnesota was something that could realistically happen. And then today, it comes out that Kevin Durant has no desire to be with Minnesota. You want to know what that tells me? And this should tell you 100%. The Timberwolves are genuinely kind of close. That is what it tells me. That Kevin Durant and his agents are working with the Suns. They've got a set of teams that they want to go to. He's got some leverage because he's a free agent at the end of next season, and he could go somewhere else if he wanted to. Miami's going to have cap space, so that does make things a little bit interesting. But this tells me that his list of preferred destinations might not be where he ends up, and now he's going to have to apply some pressure. Because you might have heard, hey, the Timberwolves are serious, and they're sending some offers for you. Now we got to ramp it up and say, no, we don't want to go there. So let's just say Minnesota. I've thought about this one. It's kind of hard to figure out a KD to Minnesota trade. Obviously, you have the Julius Randle opting in side. That could happen. That's really it. Jaden McDaniels, there's no way in fuck they're going to trade Jaden McDaniels for Kevin Durant, and they absolutely shouldn't. Of course, that'd be ironic considering that Ant quote. Yeah, they got KD, but we got Jaden McDaniels. So I thought of a few Kevin Durant to Minnesota trades. And this one right here, we can't just do it normally. We have to do it the insane way. Well, I thought about a scenario in which Rudy Gobert is involved because that does sound like it's going to be the case. What if the Suns decide, Rudy's a little older, we want something younger. Can we try and work out a trade and reroute him somewhere else? What about a scenario like this? Rudy goes to the Lakers to play alongside Luka Doncic. How fucking funny would that be? The Suns get Claxton, Rui Hachimura, and Dalton Connect, as well as the 17th overall pick from Minnesota. And the Nets get DiVincenzo, Gabe Vincent, Mike Conley, and 3 firsts. 2 of them being swaps. Now, if that sounds like a ton for the Nets to get in this, it might be. This was the first one I made right after I took my pain meds. Guys, I'm just going to start using pain meds as an excuse for everything. This was right when they were kicking in, if you guys are mad at me about this. Maybe one of these swaps goes to the Suns or something. But it's mainly to help with contracts and being the team that is, the financial dumping ground, if you will. But also Nick Claxton does have some real value. I thought this one was interesting, but it probably, I just wanted to do this one to fuck around. It would probably be something more along the lines of this, though, where the Suns get Rudy Gobert and Rob Dillingham on top of picks. And I tried to think of a scenario where the Suns are going to want to save money. Like, I can't imagine they get a return for KD. That's not like super insane while also taking on money or not trying to save a ton of money. This gets them out of the second apron entirely. And they could reroute Dante DiVincenzo to a team like Atlanta, who has a trade exception to use. And Atlanta could send the 13th overall pick to Phoenix. Do you guys think that's DiVincenzo's value? It's interesting. Trading first-round picks is really interesting when the draft comes, because trading future firsts is always a little bit more scary than trading like the 13th overall pick, especially if you're looking at it and you don't really like anybody. 13th overall. I could see something like this. I could also see Phoenix wanting to keep Dante DiVincenzo because he is a valuable player and they're going to want to be competitive. But something along these lines, and if the Timberwolves are, ready to part ways with Gobert, I could see something like this. And that does make their team interesting. Now, one of the things about this, though, is Minnesota would have to save more money. Like, there'd have to be more contracts involved in this. That way they could open up as much space as possible to bring Naz Reid back, try and bring Randall back, try and bring Nickeil Alexander-Walker back, and then also have the exceptions available to you, mid-level, taxpayer, whatever the case may be, to go out and get another center, because that would be an immediate area of need for you. So it'd be something along these lines if I had to guess. And I'm not so sure. If this is your return for Phoenix, that's really not that bad. And Minnesota sounds desperate enough, is the vibe I'm getting, that something like this feels possible. And now all of a sudden the Timberwolves would have, you'd have a point guard situation still that you have to worry about. But Kevin Durant, I mean, that's end of games. That feels pretty fucking good. Anthony Edwards, especially in that series against the Lakers, looks so good at the end of games that you feel like he's taking that next step. I mean, that's just a dynamic duo right there offensively. That would be disgusting. On top of KD's ability to play off of Anthony Edwards and all of the attention Anthony Edwards attracts. Imagine having a shooter like KD next to that. I do think Minnesota going for KD, the more I've thought about it, makes a ton of sense. Like, he fits so well, and I'd be interested in that, but it sounds like KD's not interested. Now, of course, that's not necessarily the end-all, be-all, right? Because Kawhi Leonard once upon a time said he had no desire to go play in Toronto. And where did his ass end up? Toronto. I'm bringing up Toronto because not only are the Minnesota Timberwolves interested, but the Toronto Raptors are also interested. And God damn it, guys, whenever I close my eyes at night, I see horrible, scary things. Whenever I close my eyes at night recently, I fucking see KD in a Raptors jersey. I don't know what it is. I see Kevin Durant in a Toronto Raptors uniform. There's a pathway to a trade that makes so much sense. The contracts work. It could happen. Now, it doesn't surprise me that the Raptors are desperate to do something like this, right? They went out and they traded for Brandon Ingram. Which KD and Brandon Ingram playing alongside of each other would be hilarious. They went out and traded for Brandon Ingram. It's been no secret. It's been widely reported all offseason long so far, or in the lead up to the offseason, that the Raptors want to go big game hunting. That they are interested in making a push for a star level player. Giannis is that guy that gets brought up a ton. But there is a pathway here for KD to the Raptors trade that I do think makes some sense, at least from the Suns side of things. One of the reports that we got earlier today was that the Raptors are reportedly open to trading RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, and Jakob Poeltl. Sources say the Raptors will be willing to part with either RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley for a significant roster upgrade. Several league figures with knowledge of the Raptors' thinking have likewise asserted that they could show willingness to move center Jakob Poeltl, provided that the trade in question brought back Durant. Oh, speaking of the devil, I've always wondered, several league figures with knowledge of the Raptors' thinking. What does that mean? That's how things get mentioned quite a bit when reporting on sports. Familiar with their line of thinking. I mean, couldn't that just be fucking me? Like, honest to God, I'm pretty familiar with the Mavericks line of thinking. Could I just be a source for some of this stuff? Sources familiar with the Mavs line of thinking think that they might sign slightly biased to a 10-day contract heading into the season once he recovers from ankle surgery. That's just what someone familiar with the thinking told me. The whole time it's me, guys. The whole time it's me. So a trade like this, RJ Barrett has been an interesting player throughout his career. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I used to hate him. Hate is a strong word. I used to hate his game. I just used to think he was not very good. But he has been solid with the Raptors, and I think he's kind of lived up to his contract. $27 million a year really isn't that crazy. And Jakob Poeltl, when he's playing with Quickly and playing with like guys who know what they're doing with the Raptors, he does look good, and I think he's a very solid center. So a return like this on top of the 9th overall pick, because if I'm the Suns, I have to get that in return. I cannot just do RJ Barrett and Jakob Poeltl. 9th overall pick in return, that's really not a bad return whatsoever for Phoenix. Now I do start to question. I don't get why the Raptors would do this. I have no idea at all. Your team in this scenario would be what? Quickly, Grady Dick, Scotty, Kevin Durant, and you'd have to figure something out at the center position. I guess you could go Scotty small ball, and you know that's a pathway for you with Brandon Ingram starting. I mean, cool, I guess. The Eastern Conference is pretty weak, but that team's not winning. And you know, if Katie's a flight risk and doesn't want to stay in Toronto, then I'm not really sure what you just did all of this for, to be honest with you. So it's interesting. It doesn't surprise me the Raptors' name are involved, but again, I close my eyes and I fucking see KD in a Raptors jersey. I'm not sure why that is the case, but that is the case. I'd be surprised if it happened, but that's just like what my gut is telling me for some weird reason. So you have the Raptors are involved in this now. Again, Kawhi once upon a time said he didn't want to play in Toronto. Well, guess what? He did. He won a championship. But also, guess what happened? He did leave the following summer. So something to think about. What else do we have? Mark Spears. KD wanted the New York Knicks. The Knicks have no interest in bringing him in. There was some fear from him and Rich Kleiman that they're hoping that there's going to be respect at Kevin's age to give him what he wants rather than try to trade him like he's 31. So this is another thing about this whole fiasco that's been so annoying to me is the Suns are clearly leaking shit to the media in an effort to try and like ramp up the value for Kevin Durant in an effort to sort of get stuff circulating in the news cycle. But also Kevin Durant and his people are also sharing shit. Obviously, he doesn't want to play here. He doesn't want to play there. We're hoping that the Suns do right by him. I'm going to be 110% honest with you. If I'm Phoenix, I'm looking KD dead in the eye and I'm saying, why the fuck would we trade you where you want to go? No offense. Like, I know it sucks. I know that we've been very disappointing. But, man, I'm going to be honest with you, bro. If the Charlotte Hornets call us tomorrow with the best offer for you, you're getting traded to Charlotte. That's just the way that it's going to be. I'm sorry that it's worked out that way, but it's just the way that it's worked out. Okay? So this idea that, like, KD's people really want the Suns to do right by him. I mean, I really don't get why. Why would they? Why would they care? The Suns are going to get the best return possible. And I think that's how they should be operating. And speaking of that, again, we're just leaking every fucking tiny detail about this. The Phoenix Suns are not excited about the current offers they're receiving from the Miami Heat, San Antonio Spurs, and Houston Rockets. So this was reported today. Now, this is just your typical run-of-the-mill leaking stuff to the media to try and, you know, get more value from other teams. I do wonder, how often does this stuff actually work? Like, do teams fall for this? Do agents fall for stuff like this, or do they see right through it? I've actually always kind of wondered that, to be honest with you. The Phoenix Suns have already been exploring potential new teams for Jalen Green in case they acquire him in a Kevin Durant trade. This was also reported earlier this morning. This one is kind of interesting to me, just because it helps understand their line of thinking. Like, yes, I think a potential Rockets trade where Jalen Green ends up on the Suns is one of the funnier outcomes imaginable because you have Devin Booker, Jalen Green, and Bradley Beal all on the floor together. I mean, that's just like, let the comedy ensue. but it does make sense that Phoenix would. There's really no need for Jalen Green, and that's why I like a Phoenix to Houston. And I have some trades here that I'll bring up in a second. A Phoenix and Houston trade is kind of weird. It's like it's not as seamless as you would think just because of the contract situation. But if we go back to the betting odds and stuff like that, Rockets, Spurs, Timberwolves, Raptors, Knicks, Cavs, Celtics, Mavs, Thunder, Hawks. It's so interesting to me that the Heat are favorites. There's been reports that the Heat are ramping up. It's been the Heat are on his list. They become the favorites today. I'm just similar to the Raptors line of thinking. I don't really get why Miami does it. I have made Miami. The contract stuff does make total sense. Like maybe this is a part of it. Is the Heat have the contracts to make this work and pretty seamlessly. But you look at this return for Phoenix, like Wiggins, Duncan Robinson, Jovic, and the 20th overall pick. That's kind of what you're working with. It's not like the Heat have a ton of first-round picks they can throw at you. In terms of young, like really fun, blue-chip prospects, they don't really have that. Khalil Ware is somebody who's been mentioned quite a bit. The Suns reportedly want Khalil Ware, is some of the stuff that I've seen. I'm going to be honest with you, though. If I'm the Heat, I don't really want to do that. Like, obviously, yes, Kevin Durant is a much better player than Khalil Ware. Even Kevin Durant at 36 years old is a better player right now, today, than Khalil Ware will ever be in the history of his career. But it's just like, where does that put me, though? If I'm trading my best and most interesting young prospect in Khalil Ware for KD, Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, and Kevin Durant, like fucking Terry Rozier still running my fucking point and gambling on games, like that team does nothing for me at all. Even in a weak Western Conference, that team just feels so uninspiring. But if it's something like this, if you're Miami and you can get there with Wiggins, Duncan Robinson, Jovic, and your 20th pick this year that you got in the Butler trade, yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, I like Jovic. If you guys have watched me at all, you guys know I like Jovic. I've picked Jovic to win Most Improved Player, I think, this year. I think he was my pick to win Most Improved Player. I could be wrong, but he was one of my picks to win Most Improved Player. I'm a believer in his. I still think there's some upside, although he did have a disappointing season, struggled with injuries and stuff as well. But at his size, he's got, some off-the-dribble juice, can play off-ball, has shown some shooting flashes and movement shooting flashes, can cut, some decent playmaking chops, and at his size, probably could be a better defender than he is right now. Like, I still think there's some upside with Jovic. So I would tell Suns fans if something like this were to happen, like, Jovic is something to get excited about, but this package stinks. Like, this package fucking sucks. Honestly, if I'm Phoenix and this is the best I can get, I probably just run it back. As crazy as that sounds. Like, I'd probably just stick with Kevin Durant. I mean, why not? We'll probably be bad again next year. Maybe we can trade him at the deadline. But if it's Wiggins, Robinson, Jovic, and a 20th overall pick, like, what am I even doing? Sometimes you got to look in the mirror and ask yourself, destructive Matt Ishbia, what are you even doing? That's something that I think's gotten lost on us. I told you guys that in my gut, I felt the Raptors for some weird reason. I still think the Texas teams, Spurs and Rockets, just make the most sense. From the Spurs side of things, again, there's a pathway to make it happen very easily. Very, very easily. Obviously, if it's Castle, if it's a second overall pick, we're not even having this discussion. And I think it was Gambo, who's a Suns reporter, and he's usually the guy that knows the most about the Suns. That Phoenix wanted Castle or the second overall pick, and that's off the table entirely, obviously. But there's other trades that make sense. If I were Phoenix and I was like, okay, San Antonio has our best offer. We just have to make a deal with them. This is what I'm asking for personally. If the second overall pick and Castle's off the table, Vassell, Harrison Barnes, and I got to have Sohan. I have to have Jeremy Sohan in the deal, and the 14th overall pick this year that the Spurs have from the DeJounte Murray trade, Atlanta's 14th overall pick. This isn't like super exciting, but it does move me a little bit if I'm Phoenix. Devin Vassell, I've loved him. I've defended him for so long. He just kind of is who he is at this point. He just cannot stay on the floor. There's still some intriguing upside with him as a scorer, as a shooter, somebody with his sort of quick twitch athleticism. There's still some upside there, but it's the excitement level has dropped significantly. Harrison Barnes, if I'm a team like the Suns, I don't have my pick, I'm trying to be competitive. Like, Harrison Barnes does help me out pretty much immediately. And Sohan is the blue chip guy of this deal, with his defensive upside. And, kind of, you could just sort of talk yourself in it being like a weird fit next to Victor Wembanyama and stuff, even though those two played really well off each other. But going to a place where hopefully you can get some more shooting around him, I could see it. Like, this isn't that bad of a return. The thing is, though, if I'm the Spurs, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not. I hate to be that guy who's like, no, I can't include Sohan. I cannot include Sohan in a Kevin Durant deal. But I don't think I will, just because I don't, like, why do I have to? If I believe in Jeremy Sohan, and I do think the Spurs are big believers in Sohan, and I've seen enough from Victor Wembanyama and Sohan as a pairing that I really like those two together. I don't feel the need to do this. So I think there's other pathways. Like, this would be my offer. This is what I would do if I were in charge of the San Antonio Spurs, because I mentioned at the top, there are teams I think should do it. If you can get KD for 50 cents on the dollar, the Spurs are one of them. It makes so much sense to me. Even if you were to extend them, right? You have $54 million this upcoming season, and then you extend them for another 2 years after that. That doesn't even really fuck up your money that bad, because you're still not worrying about paying Castle at that point. I don't even think Wemby's Supermax or rookie max will have kicked in at that point. Like, you're still kind of playing with house money, and KD's contract can just kind of expire and he can ride off into the sunset and you're good to go. So it makes all the sense in the world to me to make a move like this. This would be my final offer, basically. I would include a future Atlanta first for the Suns, because I can't imagine. It's similar to what we said about Jalen Green earlier, where it's like, I don't think the Suns would have much desire to have Devin Vassell. I do think there's a pathway for where the Spurs can add another pick, a future 2027 first, and the Suns could flip that to Brooklyn in an effort to get Claxton, because they also want a center and all of this. We know their center woes are widely sort of talked about, but this really isn't that bad for Phoenix, honestly. You get a starting center, Nick Claxton. You get forward, older guy, expiring contract in Harrison Barnes, so that's nice, but also could help you play right now. Like, he's a legitimately good role player. 14th overall pick this year. The only thing is like, do the Nets do this? I don't know what Devin Vassell's value across the league is. Is he just a complete and total net negative with $27 million a year over the next 4? I don't know. That's something that I'm curious about. But I'm at least getting a future first that could be pretty valuable in exchange for Nick Claxton. Could you maybe get something better than this for Claxton if Claxton were on the market? Maybe. But I think this is an interesting trade for both sides, and this feels like the most realistic type of trade we have, honestly. It just feels realistic. The Suns, it's not the worst return of all time, but it's not great, and I just don't think you're going to get a great return. You also have the Rockets, and the Rockets one is difficult to try and figure out. It's sort of, again, if I'm the Suns, I'm asking for something along the lines of this. This says failed, but it's because of the Nets. I think this would work. I don't really understand. The Nets' whole situation is bizarre to me. But I'm asking for something along the lines of this if I'm Phoenix. I need Jabari Smith Jr., and I need the 10th overall pick. Like, those things have to be included in the trade. Of course, I'm asking for more initially, but that's sort of my I draw the line there. And in theory, maybe I can flip that 10th overall pick to Brooklyn. They can take the Jalen Green deal. I can get Nick Claxton. So I'm basically trading Kevin Durant for Nick Claxton and Jabari Smith Jr. Is that super exciting? No. Would they want future picks? Absolutely. And maybe Houston's desperate enough to make something like that happen. I'm not entirely sure. But this isn't that bad. Like, you're getting two really solid young players in Claxton and Jabari Smith Jr. And also a guy that you'd be taking a real shot at in Jabari Smith Jr. Like, I personally think he's been a little underwhelming. I think a lot of that has to do with his situation in Houston, so much so that I think the idea that I've seen that, like, Jabari Smith Jr. is just off the table in trade talks entirely, I think it's a little ridiculous, just because, I don't know, does Houston really want to pay him that much? He hasn't performed that well for them. But also at the same time, I do still believe in him, I do still believe in him. So if I'm another team trading with the Rockets, I get Jabari Smith Jr., I'm pretty happy about that, because I can talk myself into that, turning into something a lot more exciting. The thing is, though, is like, why would the Rockets do this? This feels like a lot. You're probably looking at something more along the lines of this, where it's Dylan Brooks and Jalen Green and the 10th overall pick. And that way, if you're Phoenix, you're getting Claxton and Dylan Brooks. I mean, it's really not that exciting. Now, maybe Houston adds another pick, and you could sort of change this to where maybe the Suns keep the 10th overall pick this year. The Rockets send the Suns one of their future firsts, and the Suns send that to the Nets in exchange for Nick Claxton. I could see that being sort of a framework. Because if it's Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and 2 firsts, do you guys think the Rockets would be a little bit more interested in that? You know, if you take Jabari Smith out or any of their other, like Tari Eason, you don't include him. If it's just Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and 2 first-round picks, do you think that's enough for KD? Because, look, I'm going to be honest with you guys. The Rockets are not good enough. I get they're still a young team and you want to let these guys grow. They're not good enough, and their problems are going to persist. You really have to squint to look at their roster and try to find the guy who's going to turn in to what they need, which is the end of game, 5 minutes left. It's a 2-point game. We have to go get a bucket. We need a guy who's going to carry us for the next 6 minutes and get us, 8, 9, 10 points. They don't have that guy, and they don't, honest to God, they don't really have a guy who even projects to be that. They have a very young, exciting, fun core, and what they did this year was remarkable, and defensively, they're going to be demons for a very long time. And, Shane Goon's just a great player to have on your team. Amen Thompson's an incredible player to have on your team, but none of those guys are just go-to bucket getters. That's just the reality of the hand, the fact of the matter at hand. Okay, we've really been rambling here. I love these rambling videos. I don't know if you guys do or not. I just like sitting here and talking. I like listening to myself talk. I had a couple other ones that I thought was funny. There was reports today, Windhorst said, that the Clippers are lingering. Now, I tossed out at the trade deadline, it was a funny, who says no type of thing, where it was Kevin Durant for Kawhi Leonard. I don't know if financially that even works, but Kevin Durant for Kawhi Leonard, just straight up. Who's saying no? The Clippers just probably tell themselves, dude, we're tired of Kawhi Leonard just never being reliable at all. We have this opportunity to get off of him and bring in Kevin Durant, who's not really reliable himself, but probably a little bit more reliable than Kevin Durant. If you're the Suns and destructive Matt Ishbia, that feels like a Matt Ishbia move, huh? We'll talk ourselves into Kawhi Leonard, and if Kawhi Leonard's healthy, we'll be one of the best teams in the league, Kawhi and Devin Booker. I could see something like that playing out, and it would be hilarious. But the Clippers one, this to me just screams desperation. We're the Phoenix Suns. We're not getting the offers we want. Just say every team in the league is interested. That's what it seems like to me, because this is what the package would have to look like. Norm Powell, Bogdan, Derek Jones Jr., and one more salary and a future first. Okay. If you're the Clippers, fuck yeah. Yeah, we'll do that. If you're the Suns, you're obviously asking for Zubats, but why would the Clippers do that? So this to me just feels a little bit smoky. I'll come back to this one right here. I think this is just one of the better. If I'm Phoenix, I think this is one of the best options that we've got. And I'll just keep doubling back to it. It's not going to happen. But the Mavericks, if they were this desperate, if I'm Phoenix, I'm calling the Mavs every day. I just am. I'm picking up the phone. Now, because of a certain trade that happened a few months ago, most GMs are probably calling the Mavericks every day. But if I'm Phoenix, I'm calling the Mavs daily to see if we can work something out. Because I even think there's pathways there for you to where, let's say the Mavs get KD. Okay. The trade would have to include PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, as well as probably Klay Thompson to make contracts work. That immediately is just very steep, right? That's why I say the Mavericks won't do it. And they shouldn't do it. That's just way too steep of a price to pay. I threw in Caleb Martin to make contracts work. An incredibly steep price. This would also be very difficult for the Mavericks financially, because they would have to fill in 4 or 5 roster slots with very limited space to do so. But there's frameworks for a trade that makes some sense, right? Maybe the Hawks take PJ Washington and in exchange into their trade exception and send the 13th overall pick to the Mavericks, and that gets rerouted to Phoenix. And the Mavericks send a future first and Caleb Martin to the Suns, and that gets rerouted to the Nets for Cam Johnson. So if you're the Suns, you're leaving with a lottery pick, Cam Johnson, Klay Thompson, Daniel Gafford. I mean, that's one of the best case scenarios I can possibly imagine for Phoenix. One of the best case scenarios I can possibly imagine. And if Dallas were super, super desperate, I think it's something that could have been on the table. I just don't think they're going to make a play like this. At the trade deadline, I thought they were going to, for sure. But I don't think they'll do it anymore. But I keep coming back to it because, man, again, if I'm Phoenix and destructive Matt, I'm calling crooked Nico every single day. I just am. There was also something else here. The Celtics were here on betting favorites. I tried to make something work. I couldn't even do it in the trade machine. It was so complicated, but I think I found one. I just wanted to challenge myself. A KD to the Celtics trade. I'm not sure why this doesn't get talked about enough. I think because it is so fucking complicated, it would never happen. But the idea kind of makes some sense to me in a world where it's like, if the Celtics say we're gonna have to throw away these contracts anyway, we're probably gonna have to give up value in order to do so. You know, why don't we try to make just this one last ditch all in effort? Hopefully Tatum comes back by the playoffs, and we have Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Kevin Durant as our big three. It would be pretty hilarious. And honestly, I think that it's not that I think it's not that crazy. Here's the trade. Boston gets Kevin Durant. Dallas is involved in this because in order for this to even work, Boston would also have to get under the second apron in the process of this trade, which I believe I had happen. So Dallas gets Drew Holiday and the 13th overall pick from Atlanta. Atlanta gets PJ Washington. So we're circling back to that whole thing. Why does Dallas do this? You get a point guard and you're getting a first-round pick in exchange for PJ Washington. Daniel Gafford's also involved in this trade. Phoenix is getting Simone Fontecchio, Daniel Gafford, and Cam Johnson. Maybe you could throw in some future firsts or whatever. Detroit's getting Sam Hauser, $10 million a year. That helps Boston's financial situation. And Brooklyn gets Kristaps Porzingis, Caleb Martin, and Neemias Queta for a future first from Boston, a future swap from Boston, and second-round picks from the Pistons. Well, I think this works. Again, the trade machine wouldn't even allow something like this. They couldn't allow. Like, this was so next level that the trade machine wasn't even ready for it. I think this works. It's pretty hilarious. It would never happen in a million years. I'm just interested in y'all's opinion. Who says no to this? The Celtics are giving up Drew, KP, also Sam Hauser, and also two first-round picks. So I think for them, that might be a little bit steep, but they're saving money in the process and they're getting KD. So maybe it's like this all last effort, last ditch thing to get going. Dallas loses Gafford and PJ, both expiring contracts this year, but they also get the 13th overall pick in this deal and a guard. I think that's pretty interesting for them if they wanted to go that route. Atlanta gets PJ. I think they would do something like that. They have a trade exception to absorb that. Phoenix probably is going to want more, huh? Like they'll probably want one of those firsts. Fontecchio, whatever, that's just for financial reasons. Gafford and Cam Johnson, two really good role players. Detroit gets Sam Hauser, helps with their shooting a little bit. They've got the move, they've got the space to make a move like that. And Brooklyn takes Porzingis, takes Martin, takes Queta first. I fucking cooked with this one. Hold on a second. You guys don't appreciate what you see sometimes. You guys really don't. Rambling.